Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be checking out the Eachine Diatone GTR349. And like many of you, when I heard about it, I thought, wouldn't that be like Dacia involved with Audi? But the strange teaming up takes nothing away from the fact that I'm back onto one of my favourite subjects, which of course is fast 3-inch racers. Now, I don't know the story with Eachine and Diatone. I mean, the only indication of them being involved with Diatone is the inscribed Eachine logo on the top of the canopy. So if you don't want to confuse your friends, then just buy a spare Diatone canopy. To make it more confusing, they have 4 models which are all very similar, so let's break them down into some kind of order. First of all, we have got the Diatone GTR349. It's got a squished X-frame and it's using the Runcam TX200U for the VTX. So once unlocked, it's limited to 200 milliwatts. That does make it the cheapest and the lightest of the bunch, coming in dry at 138 grams and just 245 grams with an 850 milliamp 4S LiPo. It was brought to my attention because of its top speed. It was claimed to have a top speed of 113 miles per hour, and on my own tests it maxed out at 104 miles per hour, which of course is very fast, but not the fastest 3-inch that I have ever recorded. At the time, that was the Skyzone S140. The great thing about this one though is its price. In fact, if any of them are to have Eachine written on the top of them, then it should probably be this one being the cheapest. Diatone then released this model with a Unify, which sent the price up, and I never got to try one of those, but they also came out with a HD version. I was meant to be getting the HD version with the Unify, but they got screwed over by Runcam, who switched the lens of the split camera from an M8 to an M12 in the making of that model. So all of the HD versions of the 349 had crazy vibration issues through the camera. Either way, I'm glad I didn't have to try that one, and I do believe they have rectified it with an M12 lens now for the HD version. So that's the 349, with the 3 being the size of the blade, the 4 being the number of cells, and the 9 meaning 2019. If they carry on with this numbering system, then they are going to have a Y2K issue on their hands next year, but I'm sure they will have a solution for that. So then comes the 369, which of course, if you go by what I just said, is the 6S version. But there has been a lot of changes made here. In fact, everything is different from the frame, stack, and camera. Even the antenna has changed. Oh, and did I mention it recorded the fastest ever speed on the channel of 124 miles per hour? And it did it every single run, but it's also the heaviest model at 260 grams. Anyways, cut back to the Eachine Diatone 349, and it looks like they have just taken the components from the original 349 with a few upgrades, I might add, and transplanted them into the 369's frame, giving an all-up weight, including an 850 milliamp 4S LiPo of 250 grams on the nose, and a 145 gram dry weight. So we have got the same 1408 4000 kV Mamba motors made by 3B. The props are the Gem Fan Flash 3052, but be careful because the spares are the 3028s, which I think will over rev on these motors unless you run, say, a 3S LiPo or limit the throttle in some way. The stack is upgraded. This time it is the Mini Mamba Mark II, so the ESCs are actually 32-bit against the original 349, which had BL Halley S ESCs. And these new ESCs are rated to 25 amps. They are set up for D-Shot 600, but the manual says that they can do D-Shot 1200. The lead is using an XT30 connector, and it does not come with a battery, so you will have to supply that yourself. Above the ESCs we have the Mark II F405 flight controller, so it's not the F7 that the 369 comes with. So it's a bit of a mix and match between the two, which means that there is less flexibility when it comes to receivers against the F7. It's come flash with Betaflight version 3.51, which is the version the original Diatone 349 came with, so I guess they have struggled to get it running nicely on Betaflight 4. But it does have a data flash, so I'll be looking for those perfectionist tuners who say that you have to get the filters right and then work on the PIDs. The problem I have with tuning off the filters is that you can build two identical quads and each need different filter settings and different PIDs. Then when you add to the fact that this is a plug and fly model, do you really think people buying plug and fly models are going to want to open black box and potentially burn their motors because they turned a filter off that somebody else turned off and was fine? Or do you think they just want some solid PIDs that will at least get them flying safely? And that's what I gave to the Diatone 369. And then Stu made his video about me being better than Bardwell, etc. when it comes to PID tuning, which of course isn't true, and was obviously just a bit of fun. But then somebody messages me and tells me that Josh has said in a live stream that he is better than Andy RC at PID tuning because he watches UAV Tech's channel on filters. Well, I think you could agree with me here. I could give you a filter setting that could instantly fry your model out of the box, or I could give you a PID tune that works okay on stock filters. So that's what I do with my tunes, and the guys playing with filters get away with the whole "this could fry your system" thing because they put the disclaimer there and they are not aiming it at a particular model. But I know you guys, when you buy a plug and fly, you just want a set of PIDs that are half decent and aren't going to fry your model. Now, it is true, if you over PID a model, it can also fry the motors, but unless you are using a massively different size LiPo to the one that I am, or trying to carry a brick, then I've had no complaints so far. And perhaps you guys could put in the comments, because I know a lot of you guys appreciate my tunes and use them, and you know what? Also use it as a platform to say, hey, you know, that tune didn't work, and then maybe I will stop offering my tunes because they take up a lot of time. In fact, the tune for this model took an entire day until I was happy with it. So on that subject, this model did come with its own set of PIDs, but I didn't think the stock PIDs were very good. So as I mentioned, I spent an entire day coming up with some settings that suited me, and I will give them to you at the end of the video, and then you can use them if you like or discard them if you don't like them, and then go along the whole black box, taking filters out and then doing it properly or whatever. It's really fun, trust me. The flight controller has Betaflight on-screen display ported to it, which is a given these days. It's also got their usual 47 microfarad capacitor to clean up the 5-volt switching regulator to get rid of some video noise. The model also comes as a plug and fly. Now, come on, Diatone, give us some options. The connector that it comes with is designed to clip in directly to an RXSR receiver, which I have placed at the back with a cable tie. I've ran the antennas through the body because I'm fed up of attaching cable ties and heat shrink to the arms. Plus, I'm only flying up to 120 meters, so I'm not worried about range. But come on, guys, you got to come up with some bind and flies with different receiver options. I know it makes them look cheaper if you don't include a receiver, but people would really appreciate it if they could just literally bind and fly with whatever receiver choice they need. There's no buzzer attached to the model, but just like their other packages, there is a breakout 2-pin JST connector, and they provide a external buzzer in the box with an adhesive on the back, so you have the option of either using D-shot commands, which will make the model lighter, or you can add their buzzer. Above the flight controller is the TBS Unify 5V, which is mounted on a plastic standoff via some adhesive. Just a quick tip, the adhesive is very strong, so if you need to remove the Unify for whatever reason, be very careful, because you could very easily rip off some of the surface mount components trying to get it off. It has its own filter board to combat video noise, and they have done an amazing job at getting rid of that by using an array of components, including another 47 microfarad low ASR capacitor. One thing to note about the Unify is that it comes locked out of the box to 25 milliwatt. So a quick YouTube search will show you how to unlock it. I still don't like the loose micro UFL connector. If that pops off in a crash and you are running at 800 milliwatt, then the VTX will be toast in seconds. Take it from me, all of that stuff that they say about them having thermal protection, well, try telling that to my 5 dead Unifies. I hate to be on a complaining streak, but the way that they have mounted this linear antenna has got to be the worst place possible. You want it further back and at a slight angle, because as soon as the quad is facing away from you, then the quad is blocking the antenna, therefore the signal. But this time I'm not going to move it. We shall see in the flight footage what a waste of a Unify this antenna is. Now, before you start writing on your blog about it, they mount it in this way so that it fits in the box better, and it's also less exposed in a crash, but it's not doing the Unify or your video signal any justice. The canopy has some LEDs in it, just like the 369, but they don't have the strip down the middle, and there's also no button to control what the LEDs do, so they shine permanently white around the outer edge, and they can't be controlled via Betaflight. They are very bright though, I should say. You can see them in daylight. So lastly, we have the camera, which is the Runcam Micro Swift. I actually think this is a good choice for this model. On the 369, they went all out with the Foxeer Predator V4, which is a CMOS camera, and in high sunlight on full throttle, you do get a little bit of jello. The Micro Swift is a CCD camera, so there won't be any jello because it uses a different technology to get the picture. My only complaint regarding the camera would be for the newbie, because you can't sit the camera down very low, and that's because the connectors on the back of the camera touch the VTX, but I wouldn't exactly call this a beginner model, and its vertical movement has to be like 55 to 60 degrees, so your avid racer is going to love that. As for everything else, the small complaints that I have are more reiterations of the issues that I had with the 369. For example, the LiPo strap was routed through these slots in the frame, which meant if you kept it that way, you couldn't fit the included silicon strips to stop the LiPo from slipping or even throwing a LiPo in a heavy crash. And again, the strap that was fitted to the model wasn't long enough for any of the recommended LiPos to fit. So I just had to find the longest strap in the package. Luckily, they provide 3, and then I threaded it through underneath the stack, and I didn't have a problem then fitting a 850 milliamp 4S LiPo around the strap. In the box, you get your standard Diatone goodie bag of bits, which include a bunch of Diatone stickers and a support card for their website. You get the manual for the Mini Mamba Mark II, as well as a bag containing a bunch of cable ties, screws, spare wires, including a spare harness for the ESC to the flight controller. We've got the buzzer with some adhesive on the back, as well as the opposite end to the XT30 connector in case you need to make up your own wire for your charger. So this is the hottest day of the year so far. Looks like it, doesn't it? It's 32 degrees C and it's very dull with a heavy cloud. That is the UK weather for you, but let's go for a speed run and see what it gets. So that's 100 miles per hour on its first run, and I've explained this in my 6S videos. With 4S, usually your first speed run isn't the quickest. There's something about the battery needing to warm up, and it gets faster and faster, and then it hits a brick wall and slows down. So let's see what this next run is. So that's 111 miles per hour, and we are at 13.8 volts, and then 100 miles per hour in the opposite direction. This is a fairly new battery. That's something that I wanted to mention, actually. You know, are these speed tests useful? And second of all, it destroys these batteries in about 10 cycles. So if you are all thumbs up for the speed runs, then it would really do me a favor if you could sign up to Patreon. Look at this, we have got 103 miles per hour on a diagonal run there. But yes, it is my lovely patrons, thank you so much, affording me these lipos, because they are dead within 10 cycles, and then it's not fair to use those old lipos. By the way, the current meter isn't working and I can't get it to calibrate, so just ignore those figures. But anyways, I'm just testing out the tune here. We're getting a bit of breakup. You see, when I'm above myself, this is why I don't agree with the placement of the antenna. It is not doing the Unify justice. I mean, you can see the power of the Unify there, R14. I'm not going to say what 4 means, but it should not be breaking up like this when it is in the 4 position, and that's because it's in the wrong orientation at every possible moment. I mean, alright, I'm behind myself here, but it still shouldn't break up that much. So we've been having about 100 miles per hour and the battery's settling down there, and now this is where we hit the brick wall and we're getting 95 miles per hour. And this is why I think 6S is a good thing for 3-inch. It sends the weight up a little bit. You can get the weight down, but 4S is a little bit more inconsistent. You know, you sort of ramp up your speed, as I've always said throughout these speed tests, and you get your fastest speed and then it just tails off and you just end up with a sort of average speed. But yeah, what I can take away from this is with my tune, which I will link in the below as a CLI, so you can apply that if you like. I'm not going to go through Betaflight. Yeah, I'm getting a 3-minute flight time here, but I'm nursing it back. You probably get a 4-minute flight time if you aren't doing these speed runs. I will link to it in the below, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.